Where do you see yourself in 5 years? This is like a classic interview question, and if you're doing any amount of interviewing or job hunting, you are absolutely going to encounter this question or one just like it at some point in your job search. In today's video, I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do to answer this question. It might seem a little intimidating to forecast out your career that far. It might seem a bit irrelevant to today because you're interviewing for a job today, not one in 5 years. But the reality is you are going to get asked this, so you need to know how to answer it. And there are actually a lot of ways to get it wrong. I'm going to teach you how to get it right. Now, as always, I want to start with the why. I think it makes sense to evaluate why would someone ask me this question whenever you think about building your answer to it, because you want to get at what do they need to hear in order for me to be successful. And the reality is what most people who are asking you this question want to hear is just that you have a reasonable plan for your future. You've thought about it, you're putting steps together for yourself to be successful, and that you have a vision for where you want to be. Now, I think there are 3 things that you need to do to truly answer this question like super well, okay? So the first thing that you need to do is you need to demonstrate a reasonable plan of self-development. And I think it is really valuable if you can do this outside of whatever job you're going to be in. So when you're answering this question, a lot of people just go to, well, this is a job I want in 5 years. Cool. What are you going to do to get there? And what are you going to do outside of your job to make yourself a more dynamic professional? The next thing I want you to do is when you think about this question, think about where getting this job today could take you in this organization in 5 years. So let's just say, for example, you're interviewing for a junior buyer role. So you're in procurement, you're going to be interviewing, and they ask you, where do you want to be in 5 years? You might say, well, one of the things that I'd like to be doing is I'd like to work on my communication skills. So I'm going to be joining a local Toastmasters club. And in 5 years, I would like to think that I'd be really strong when it comes to speaking. And I would be able to work with customers in a more dynamic and professional way because I would have become a stronger speaker in that period of time. As far as from a career perspective, I think coming into this role, I'm really focused on honing my skills as a junior buyer and really getting the basics down. Assuming I'm able to succeed and grow and develop in 5 years, I could see myself in a buyer or senior buyer role within your organization. And I think that for me would be a very positive outcome. So again, think about their organization and where you could be in 5 years with their organization. Now, lastly, the thing you need to do is you need to not overshoot this role, right? So say you're that same person, you're interviewing for a junior buyer role, and they go, where do you want to be in 5 years? And you go, I'd like to be the director of procurement. That might be too much. That's too high. That could be their job. You don't want to say anything that is too far ahead. You need to be reasonable with it. If you're interviewing for a role and they say, where do you want to be in 5 years? And you say a role that's like 4 or 5 steps up, that's too much. You're overshooting the goal. They're going to hear that and they're going to think, well, one, that's not realistic. Ben doesn't have a realistic vision for what the path might look like. And 2, well, are they even interested in their goal, in this role? If their goal is something so ambitious, it sounds like they want to breeze past the role I'm on. When you're answering this question, they need to think you're reasonable, but they also need to still walk away thinking, Ben still wants this role today. They have a future goal, but they want this role right now. And I know that one seems a little funny because it's like, well, Ben, they asked me. That is very true. But you also have to take into consideration that they want to still believe you want this role, but you do have a good plan for the future. Now, I'm going to give you an example of how you can answer this question. I'm going to answer it as a candidate, but remember, before we do that real quick, this question is all about setting realistic expectations for where you could be in 5 years, showing that you have ambition and a plan, and showing that what they have to offer you from a role and company perspective aligns with your future vision. Foundationally, that's what you need to be thinking when you answer this question. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and answer this question as if I was a candidate. I'm gonna pretend I'm a quality engineer. I just happen to love quality engineering. I've done a lot of recruiting in there. I just think it's cool. So, Ben, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Well, that's a really good question, and I've put a lot of thought to it. So what I'm really focused on is growing my skills as a quality engineer and developing. So within the next 5 years, one of my goals is to achieve my Six Sigma Green Belt. So what I'd like to do is go and take courses for that and ultimately successfully achieve a product in which I can demonstrate savings and get my Six Sigma Green Belt. From a job perspective, what I think I'd like to be doing is I'd like to come into this role and I'd like to learn this industry a little bit better. I'd like to hone my skills in continuous improvement and quality engineering in general. And I think in 5 years, what I'd like to be doing is I'd like to be in a senior quality engineer spot. And I'd like to see my role be a little bit more diverse. Maybe I'm dealing a little bit more with clients. Maybe I'm doing a little bit of mentoring at that point. But in terms of my career arc and my vision for it, what I see is me continuing to grow and develop, getting my Six Sigma Green Belt, and ultimately being in a senior version of the role I'm interviewing for today, ideally with this company. And there it is. So that's straightforward, right? You show something outside of the work, right? You're showing, I'd like to get my Six Sigma Green Belt. This can be independent of the actual role, right? It's a goal you have. You show that you want this job with the company. I'd move into this role. You talk about the success here, your growth, your development, and ultimately a role within their organization in a more senior capacity, which is realistic. In 5 years to be there, very realistic. You're also not just talking about the role. It's not all about title to you. You're also talking about increasing your scope, right? You're talking about dealing with customers. You're talking about mentoring junior engineers, which again, is very valuable because it shows them you could be a future leader potentially within the organization. You have a desire to help groom future junior quality engineers, which again, any manager is going to see value in that. That is a valuable addition to the team. And again, it's a reasonable, ambitious, thought out plan. And that's basically what you're looking for here. So that is everything you need. I hope you found value here. If you're not already subscribed, please do. Also hit the like video. It tells YouTube I don't suck, and I appreciate that. Good luck in your next interview. You got this.